Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome. Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at the Helping Parents Heal meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. However, these Zoom meetings are helpful to parents and families throughout the world, and we therefore post them on YouTube for those who are unable to attend. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. And if you have any comments about the meeting afterwards, please send them to Elizabeth.
Yes. Well, first of all, I would like to say that this is going to be a wonderful interactive meeting. So if you have any questions for Reverend Sue Frederick and Dr. Linda Backman, you can put them in the chat box, and we will certainly honor them. And also, please let us know who you are and where you're from if you'd like to in the chat box. But I'd also like to do a short introduction for both of them because they're both amazing afterlife experts, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about them. First, for Dr. Linda Backman, she's been featured on Coast to Coast AM and Gaia TV. She's an expert teacher, regression therapist, and licensed psychologist with 45 years of private practice experience, including over 25 years guiding soul regressions. Linda was trained by soul regression pioneer Dr. Michael Newton, and they worked together training other therapists for 3 years. Linda has conducted thousands of past life and between lives soul regressions in person and remotely. Linda founded the Raven Heart Center and Training Institute in Boulder, Colorado in 1997 and teaches regularly worldwide. She also provides spiritual mentoring and psychospiritual grief sessions on Zoom. Linda's books are Souls on Earth, The Evolving Soul, and Bringing Your Soul to Light. She is an international expert in understanding how reincarnation plays a pivotal role in our personal growth and relationships. So this is going to be very exciting. Her website is www.ravenheartcenter.com. I'll put that in the chat box after. Reverend Sue Frederick, who you all know and love, is a channel, clairvoyant, claircognizant, and clairaudient who receives wisdom from guides and departed loved ones to help others heal grief and find purpose. With her powerful intuition, Sue uses sacred numerology and mystical information to facilitate access into a divine lens where our soul's wisdom is available 24/7. Sue has been a guest on hundreds of radio shows and TV interviews, featured in major magazines and newspapers, and is the author of more than 11 books. After suffering a tragic loss, Sue became a sacred numerology practitioner since 1981. She brings a deeply enlightened perspective to using numbers as navigational tools for deciphering the soul's journey and connecting to departed loved ones. As an ordained minister, unity minister, lifelong intuitive, past life and between lives soul regression therapist, master numerologist, intuitive coach, and spiritual guide, Sue has helped thousands of people realign with their soul's purpose and connect to departed loved ones in therapeutic conversations. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, CNN, Real Simple, Yoga Journal, Natural Health, Complete Woman, Fit Yoga, and Nexus magazines. And you can find out more about her at www.suefrederick.com. And as I say, I'll put both of those into the chat box. But without further ado, please join me in welcoming Reverend Sue Frederick and Dr. Linda Backman, who I believe will be kicking it off. Is that right, Linda?
I will do my best to get us rolling. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay. Well, this is always an incredible pleasure. And I just mean that from the depth of me, my soul, my heart, because I too have a child in spirit, and stepped into that world, that understanding, that journey. Now it's about 52 years ago. So without giving that whole long story, it's basically the passing of my second child that led me to really want to know more, and that led me, into this sort of deep process that all of us in this group go through. So Sue and I are dear friends and colleagues, and I'm going to dive in with a piece first about spiritual guides and higher selves. And questions are just completely important. So we invite questions so we can dig deeper. And so I'll just say Sue and I had a plan, and then I kind of slightly went off on just a brief, not exactly a detour. And we'll come back to exactly what Sue and I talked about. So what I began to think about late this afternoon was when we want to tap into our intuition, and when we want to tap into our child in spirit as well as our guidance. How do we do that? How does that work? And here's the download that occurred and also comes through my many years of guiding regression. I'll just say to people, I was I was once normal. I was once a conventional psychologist and fell into understanding the afterlife and soul through the passing of not only my child, but also a dear friend. So a couple of pieces about how to tap in intuitively, and to whom do you tap in? So it's my understanding that when our child transitions out of their physical body, for some period of time, maybe short, maybe long, they become one of our guides. That our child in spirit is right there, as I think you all know, not having a physical body, but that's all they lose. And so first, as you think about tapping into your intuition, first think about, can I talk to my beloved child on the other side? And the answer is yes. The answer, I completely believe, is yes. Even for me, 52 years later, I feel like I at times not only tap into to our son on the other side, but I tap into almost like general guidance that comes from him, our child that we named Adam. Along with that, there are also times when I think the best place to tap in is your higher self. So I think you all know that when we're in body, we have a percentage, a portion of our soul energy that causes us to live and breathe. When we leave our body, in the case of our child in spirit, that percentage, that holographic piece of our soul energy, of our child's energy, essentially automatically leaves the body when the body's no longer functioning, and elevates, returns back and steps back into the totality of the soul of our child. For those of us as parents, or siblings or grandparents or whatever it might be, we also can talk to our own soul, our own higher self. And I think that people forget to do that. And so when you get quiet and use your intuitive capabilities to open, be sure, think about tapping in two places, to your child in spirit, but also, and really important, is that our soul self is always available along with our child. So please think about that. We can talk about that more, but somehow spirit just wanted me to bring that in. So Sue, before I say more about that, let me stop jabbering and let you jump in here.
Well, I just wanted to add that, my husband crossed 43 years ago, but when I need guidance, he's usually one of the first beings to step forward. And even if I'm not even aware that I need guidance, he will step in and say, hey, you need to talk about suffering in a different kind of way, and he'll really be very corrective of me because he's been working in the divine realms for 43 years, helping people cross over, and many of our children too. I mean, they have jobs there and they are very profoundly wise now. So even if you're not asking for help, sometimes they're going to step in and they're going to show you a license plate that has an answer to your question or do something like that, because they are always connected to us. They're part of our soul posse. Doesn't matter if they crossed yesterday or 50 years ago. They are still part of our posse, and they will always be caring about us. Like Linda said, they're always going to be the ones to first come forward. And for me, writing is a way that I can feel and hear the difference between whether it's my higher self or whether it's another spirit, a guide or Paul or a departed loved one, because the wording that comes in surprises me and it's not wording that I would use. That's how I know it's not my higher self. Does that make sense?
I mean, that makes such total sense, Sue. And I suspect that's what happened for me in the last hour and 15 minutes as we were getting ready to come together with everyone, is that, I really don't know. I don't have to know whether it was Adam, our child on the other side, or it was my higher self or another guide who just said, Linda, be sure to talk about tapping in. And I'll say just a couple more quick things, because I think that so often we don't think about talking to our soul. So talking to our soul means it's almost like just reaching to a friend. And that might sound weird to people, but it's like reaching to that greater part of us, that totality of ourselves. The other just quick thing that my higher self reminded me of is that for those of us that use meditation, quote unquote, and that's a kind of a broad term, but for those of us that use meditation as our spiritual practice, I would say also be sure that meditation is a combination of getting quiet, but also opening. So that meditation isn't just getting quiet and grounding and letting go of maybe the complexity of the day, but it's getting quiet and then opening to your intuition. So doing both. Yeah. Okay. Well, now I'll get back on track, Sue, and go where we said we were going to go.
Wait, before you do, we have a question from Marina, and she's asking,
Okay.
how do you talk to your soul? How do you know that you are talking to your soul? And I just want to kind of maybe have you explain that who this soul is, because I think that a lot of the parents don't necessarily understand that we can exist in more than one place at the same time, and that we're actually with our kids right now as at the same time that we're here.
I
So
don't think our left brains are designed to let us really understand that. I kind of think that's one of those faith things, Linda, don't you think? It's like we might not logically be able to ever understand that because time and space is not really linear and we can only comprehend it linearly. And so we have to almost have faith that, yes, there's a part of ourselves alive and well in the divine with our departed loved ones, as much as our logic mind cannot grok that. Is that what you think, Linda?
Yeah, that's a great comment, Sue. I would put it just in a slightly different context, and that is that at all times. So, okay, so Elizabeth's here, Sue's here, Lisa's here, I'm here. Okay. We have a percentage, and so everybody, I honestly think it's more left brain than we might think. So so I'm talking to all of you because I have soul energy that that basically enervates, runs, causes me to live and breathe. At the very same time that I'm sitting here, the remainder of my soul energy is in the higher realm, you can call it heaven, you can call it the spiritual realm, it is in the higher realm. It is within time and space. So that if I'm talking to Adam, my child on the other side, Adam is talking to me from his soul level in real time. And so I think everybody try not to make this overly, I mean, it's mystical for sure, but it's, you all know, you've heard this before. It's like, it's art, it's science, it's mystery, it's mythology. It's not mythology or mystery because our child and our own soul, it's what you said, Elizabeth, that our child is there available right now. Our higher self is there and available right now. Make it left-brained because, in my opinion, based on guiding regression for a lot of years, it is left-brained.
yes, and that is actually Reverend Sue who was talking about it being left brain. And when I discovered this, I think that that was one of the most comforting things that I could have discovered. And I realized that I spend a lot of time with my kids when I'm sleeping, that I
Yes.
visit with them, that I do things with them because I wake up realizing that I've spent time with them, not that I remember it. And that's something that's also really important to realize. You might not necessarily be remembering your dreams, although it's wonderful to keep a journal and write down what you've dreamed as soon as you get up. But anyway, I'm sorry. Sue, please go ahead.
Well, I love what you said, Elizabeth, because yes, very often we wake up feeling the essence of our departed loved one, or even a friend who lives in this realm with us, or a family member. We wake up knowing that we were with them all night. Now, we may not be able to, in fact, Lisa's here, and it's so funny because I see Lisa in the divine more often than I even get to see her in real life. And I'm always texting her in the morning going, Lisa, I was in that huge, beautiful house with you again last night. And she goes, I know exactly what house you mean. And so some of us travel at night to be with people here and have an important connection and communication, but we also go to the divine to be with our beloveds. And your job is simply to trust and not to go crazy trying to remember every detail. Because I work with some moms who go, I knew I was with my son, but I couldn't remember any of it. Well, we don't have to, let's just trust that our beloveds are with us and that our dream life is our higher self being in the divine. And we get to have a great time there, even if we can't remember it when we wake up.
Yeah, Sue, I think that, that's beautiful. And that speaks to the question of how do you talk to your soul? Because we talk to our soul sometimes in left brain content, But we also talk to our soul, or the soul of our beloved on the other side. We also talk to them in terms of emotion. And so waking up in the morning and just saying, okay, I feel that I was with him or her. And it's just a feel, because it doesn't need to necessarily be left-brained. So I hope everyone will say to themselves, I'm just going to trust. I woke up, or I sensed, and here's how it felt. Not what did that soul say, just how
Yeah.
did it feel?
How did
Yeah.
it feel? That's such an important question, Linda. You know, that it's always, I was just hearing today one of the, on a podcast, somebody was saying, Earth is known as the planet of emotion in the galaxies. They think of Earth as the place where you come to learn how to have feelings and navigate feelings. So when we say, I feel I was with my child, but I can't remember it, that's okay. We are Earth beings in this lifetime. We are here to have feelings, to have emotion. There are many galaxies, and you can talk about this, Linda, you know, IP souls, where emotion is a very limited range. It's not at all the way it is here on Earth, and that we come to Earth to experience the whole continuum of it, so that we learn to choose the higher frequencies of love and compassion.
Totally, totally. So, okay, that's a perfect segue, Sue. And this is, kind of like the dog and pony show, the song and dance of Sue and Linda, because we know each other, and we sense each other. And I guess I would say we feel each other. So, okay. So let me just, and I'm going to try to make this short. Here's what I've learned from, years of guiding regression. What I've learned is that when our soul is created, and I'll just say that simply, I know some of you are going to say, well, how does that happen? And where does that happen? And I won't exactly go there, except to say that our soul is created in the higher realm. Our soul is created at a higher, we might call it divine, we might call it source, call it, what fits for each of you. So what I've learned is that there are three different, the word type is never quite the word I like, three different origination or soul origin. And as I share this, everybody, I hope you'll think about your beloveds on the other side, because this may well, the reason Sue and I thought this would be useful is for you to understand the nature, the qualities, the flavor of your child in spirit. So, okay. So the bulk of souls on the earth, the bulk of souls that incarnate on earth, are what the term I use is an earth-based soul. And I want to be sure that all of you don't hear me saying earthbound, because earthbound, that people usually use that to mean a soul that's stuck. That's not what I mean. An earth-based soul is simply a soul that was originated or designed to come to earth, embody on earth, and evolve lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, on and on and on. That's an earth-based soul. Most people on earth are earth-based souls. But now there's two other types of souls. And I think oftentimes when we're talking about the experience of a child on the other side, that doesn't mean your child's not an earth-based soul, because your child could well be. Actually, my son Adam is an earth-based soul. But your child can be one of two other possibilities. One, and this is the terminology, so I hate to make it too cumbersome. One of the other two different types of souls is an interplanetary soul. That's a soul that was designed to function somewhere, we might say, within the solar system of Earth, and perhaps even outside of the solar system of Earth and within the Milky Way galaxy. That's a soul that evolves primarily somewhere else in the greater celestial realm becomes rather evolved because they come from a healthy culture in the greater celestial realm. Earth is not 100% healthy culture. I think we all know that. So when an interplanetary, or what I call an IP soul, when an IP soul comes to Earth, they've agreed to come to Earth to bring their wisdom. They've agreed to come to Earth and bring their, to use a fancy word, sagacity, their sage knowledge. And often they struggle to be here. Why? Because they're not used to humanity. They're not used to the way humans function. They're not used to working within this kind of physical body that we're all sitting here living within. And so they have this wisdom that's usually beyond their years, way beyond their years. And yet they come to help humanity to evolve. And some struggle, a minor amount. Some of these humans struggle more than a minor amount. There are times, if your child is an interplanetary and IP soul, they're trying to navigate human life, human bodies, human digestion, human diet, the energetic, all the qualities of air and environment and all of that. And sometimes it's challenging, and yet we need them. We need their wisdom. So even, and here's a piece that Spirit is telling me to say, interesting, I hadn't thought about this, that if potentially your child on the other side is an IP soul, they came to bring their wisdom. And even once they're on the other side, they can still impact Earth. And one way they can impact Earth is through us as beloved family members, moms, dads, grandparents, siblings. So some of our children are interplanetary souls. Lastly, then I'll stop jabbering. There are souls that, a third type of soul, different type of soul. There are souls that come from the angelic realm. These are souls that serve the divine. They are ambassadors of pure source, pure God, pure divine, whatever word you want to use, energy. They bring love and compassion in spades when they come here as humans. But this planet isn't purely love and compassion. So they have their marching orders, you might say, their agreement, and yet it's challenging. So some of our children in spirit are angelic souls. Yeah.
So you can write in the chat box what
Oh.
you feel where your child's soul origin is.
Yes, and I just want to ask a question very quickly that Christine just put into the chat box, and she says, if we have an IP child and we are their mothers, has a soul that comes from another realm, can we be in the same soul family? That's kind of a question I've never seen before, but I think that's very interesting.
I want to tack on to that, Christine, because that's a beautiful question. I want to tack on to what you've asked, and Sue and I both can answer it. Is your child in your soul family? And if you're the mom or the dad or who you are you also IP or are you not? Okay. So I'll start and then Sue chime in. Yeah, I'm pausing only because it's kind of a complex answer. Often an IP child has this is what I find through regression. Often an IP child has one IP parent and one earth-based parent. Because the IP parent I like to use the word grok, the IP parent sort of groks the IP child. And the earth-based parent is more of the grounding force, more of that earth experienced energy. So if you're the parent that's earth-based, technically speaking, you and your IP child are not in the same soul family. But, and I always hate the word but, I'd rather use and, but it really is but. But that doesn't mean that you as the parent, if you're earth-based, it doesn't mean that you have not had past lives with your IP child. So it doesn't mean you've never had experience in other lives together. But my notion of soul family or soul pod is that soul family is all earth-based or all interplanetary. So Sue, add to that, if you will.
Well, and it's just good for us to explore these different ideas, but what I have received about it is that our souls meet in the divine, which is a highest frequency next to God consciousness. And that's where we set up our life plans, talk to our guides and our counsel, and we even can be coming to that meeting from as an interplanetary, as an angelic realm, as an earth base, because that higher tier is big enough, vast enough to include all different types. And so just for example, you know, if I'm an angelic soul and my posse is made of earth-based souls, IPs, and angelic realm, then we are actually helping each other to learn pieces that we may not carry ourselves. And so we'll choose to drop into a lifetime where even we can be born in a family of we're the only one of our soul type, but then as we go out in the world and meet our friends, these are the friends who we've had through interplanetary reincarnations, angelic realm reincarnations. And so that's how we kind of find our people.
Yeah.
So I think in my experience, it is a vaster, like many people who only believe in ETs have trouble understanding that there's even a God force, because they sort of think that maybe the ETs are the highly intelligent beings. But my people tell me in the divine that no, the highest frequency is God consciousness, and all other tiers are sort of layered under that and work together for the evolution of consciousness. I hope that makes any sense.
Well, Catherine is saying, I think that this is very interesting. She says, is that why we sometimes feel like we don't fit in our
Yes.
Yes.
Totally. That's a great comment. Let me just respond. I completely agree, Sue, with what you've said, is that when we plan a life, we come together with the souls that are going to play key roles. And those could be mentors, those, you know, that obviously not necessarily blood family. But yes, we come together to make those agreements, no matter our soul type.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So how many of you feel that you were the only one of your soul type in your family of origin?
Raise your hands if you want.
Yes.
No, I don't feel that way. That's not what I
Oh,
feel.
Elizabeth, you have a gorgeous family of highly evolved beings, but not all of us have had that experience.
But I really would love to ask Denise this question, because she's wondering if it's possible to belong to more than one soul group. So she's saying, what do you say to people who attest that our children quickly reincarnate because their goal is to expand their consciousness, and that they forget this life is pretty fast because we could not possibly keep track of the hundreds or thousands of prior lives? So she's worried about the fact that having her child transition, who came here to teach us something, that they might actually be a part of a different soul group. So can we belong to more than one soul group, is what she's asking.
Well, if I
think
could just
what's really
quickly jump,
there's
there's an
go ahead.
important piece of this that I think her question is about as well, that I just want to address, because when my husband Paul died, people said, because I lived in Boulder is such a Buddhist community, and they said, oh, you don't want to reach out to him, you don't want to talk to him because he's moved on and incarnated somewhere. And for a while, that messed with my understanding of where he was and all of that. And what I've learned for me is that that's that linear understanding of time. Yes, Paul can be reincarnated somewhere else. And yes, he can be learning and working in the higher realms. And yes, when I need him, he's here with me. So
Totally.
please, that's how I see it, Linda. You go.
Oh, no. I told Sue, I mean, this is, I think, why we're drawn to each other so frequently is because we basically see the world very, very similarly. Yes, absolutely, because our soul can bilocate, trilocate, if I wanted to quickly, Sue, be there with you in Arizona, I'd have to drive or get on an airplane or something like that.
No, come to me
but-
tonight in my dreams, Linda.
I would love that. Yeah, yes, totally. But the question about I feel like, in some ways I think about the French term raison d'être, which means reason for being. One of my raison d'etres, if I can put it that way, is to help people understand from a grounded perspective, what is soul? What happens when we die? Where is our child? Can we talk to our child? And all of that. So when we talk about soul pod or soul, the different terms that are used, I like to say soul pod. There are different kinds of soul pods. And so let's see if I can make this kind of short. For me as an earth-based soul, when my soul was created, I joined a small group of other earth-based souls, 10 to 15 or so, and we were going to incarnate together frequently. And I know a fair amount about, my husband actually is in my soul pod. One of our two children we have three children, but one of our two living children is in my pod. The other living child is not in my pod. But by the same token, if I have a number of lives with a certain IP souls or certain angelic souls, then we also form what you might call a quasi-pod, because we work together often. And so again, it's that crazy thing of trying to be left-brained and make this understandable, but also loosen up the associations and the understandings. And I mean, for instance, Sue and I are two different soul types.
Yeah.
But we really resonate with each other.
And I need more of your kind of energy in my life, Linda, because I don't have that grounded gift that you have of making the world logical. Like I listen to you talk and I think, my God, I wish she had been with me growing up and could have explained things to me like that.
I wish I'd been with me growing up too and understood all this when I was growing up, because I didn't. Yeah, I think what's important is to categorize, but not overly categorize when we think about it. And so, Sue, you have your purpose in body, I have my purpose in body, Elizabeth does, Lisa does, and all of you do. But so here's another quick topic. So some of you may say, what brought this to mind is Sue and me. So Sue and I talk as if we know each other at a soul level. Okay. I want you all to apply this to yourself, to you and your child on the other side, and kind of play around with this. So in the higher realm, our higher selves, my higher self, my child Adam's higher self, blah, 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 blah. We work together with responsibilities in the higher realm. So I have a relationship with Adam in the higher realm. The higher realm has I'm going to call them councils. There are coordinating councils that exist in the higher realm. What that means is higher selves carry responsibilities. It doesn't matter whether you're in body or you're out of body currently, okay? We work together in the higher realm. I'm quite sure, and I know this about other people as well, but I strongly suspect, or maybe better said, I'm sure, that Sue, you and I, our souls work together in the higher realm, even though you and I are different types of souls.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when humans say to each other, "Oh, I feel like I've always known you," that sort of thing, it's true. We have. Like, I didn't meet Elizabeth until I was in my 70s, and I know I've known Elizabeth for, amazing lifetimes, amazing pastimes. And so it all comes down to me being the more emotional being here and less left brain to say, if you feel something in your heart and in your intuition and it feels true for you, it probably is. And trusting that is our job here, because our logic mind is always going to go, well, how could that possibly work? How can they be here and there all at once? But our gut feeling, our emotion, our heart, whatever you want to call it, that is our compass. And here on earth, we have emotions to help us find that compass. And I always tell people, if it feels uplifting to you, if it makes you smile, if it opens your heart, trust that it is right and true.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. And I just want to say that there's no way that you can be over 70, first of all. But that's just proof that you are an angelic being because of the fact that you stay so young.
It's delighting, Elizabeth. You've seen me in real life. I have tons of wrinkles.
But I have so many questions in the chat box, and I know that this is just such an incredible conversation. One of them, and it was the first question that we got that's in the chat box, is about, well, first of all, I just want to say that a lot of parents have put the type of child that they believe they have. Danny was asking how to determine what that child is. And I know that Linda gave a great description. Danny's early to this journey, and it would be really nice to maybe just kind of give a little breakdown resume about how to determine what type of child your child is, of the 3 different types that you were describing. Is that possible?
Sure. Totally. Let's talk about the interplanetary souls first, because maybe they're all 3 moderately easy to explain, but interplanetary souls tend to be, I guess I'll say, highly unique people. So now I'm thinking about someone whose name I will not use. It's not someone in this group. It's a person I know. I've regressed, but I've seen this person posting on Facebook a lot lately. And this is an example of, I don't want to say it's an extreme example, but it's a very detailed and characteristic example. This is a man, and if you met him and looked at him, his hair is a variety of colors. This is a very wise and intelligent and productive guy. His hair is a variety of colors. His clothing is unique. He usually wears almost like leggings, and he wears all kinds of combo of bright colors. He has struggled with addiction. He's been clean and sober for, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. And age-wise, I'm not sure how old he is. He's probably early 40s. He's very, very, very intuitive. He's very, very spiritual. He has a narrow diet. He only does well with a fairly narrow diet. So interplanetary souls might look unique on the surface. They also often have mild to moderate to sometimes severe health issues, allergies, autoimmune disorders, autistic spectrum, and this is just possibilities, not check, check, check. Autoimmune disorders, skin issues, so physiological issues, because again, they're not used to being here, and yet they're extremely wise. They often have certain kinds of skills off the charts, like musical skills, artistic skills, or left brain skills, IT type skills, that sort of thing. So IP souls are beautiful people, wise, 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 but often they seem highly unique.
Yeah.
Okay. So an angelic soul, I mean, Sue, I'm going to hand that to you and let you could do the best job possible
Well,
of
I
defining.
remember a great conversation you and I had about this once, about the different signs of that. In fact, you, Linda, were the person who helped me put it together of, why I've struggled with certain things here. And even for people who are listening, if your child was obsessed from the time they were young with spirituality, it could mean that maybe you took them to church and they would linger with the stained glass windows or the Mother Mary statue in the corner, not necessarily with the message being given, and just be drawn to the idea of God, the idea of spirituality, and really trying to find the God that they understood, a loving force rather than the punishing God. So I would say spiritual crisis from an early age. I would say spiritual awareness from an early age. Some of you moms, I know from hearing your children's story, that they would kind of blow your mind because they would challenge you about the religion or the church maybe that you were bringing them to. And in fact, there's a wonderful video that one of our moms put out about her daughter who crossed, but her daughter was saying she was going to Catholic church or Catholic school, and she came home and said, "Mom, they have it all wrong." And so this mom said, "Well, then tell me how it really works." And this beautiful angel girl said, "Oh, well, you go into the divine and here you go and pick your body for your life, and you pick this and pick that and you make your plan." And she was like, what, 7 or 8, 9 years old, and describing it all to her mother. And to me, that's an angelic soul who's came in with that high God consciousness awareness and then tried to figure out how to fit it into the world that they landed in. The other piece for me is physical, and this is kind of hard to tell the difference between an IP and an angelic soul. But for example, my mother said I nearly died the whole first year of my life because I was allergic to cow's milk. I was allergic to everything she gave me. And so I know that my soul was here going, what is this? Like, this body, what is this? How does this body work? And still trying to figure that out. And whereas I remember being a certain age when somebody said, "Oh, Peter, he's very comfortable in his skin." And I remember thinking, God, I wonder what that feels like. I was like in my 30s or 40s by that time, and being comfortable in your skin was a foreign concept to me. So if your child is like that too, you can think, well, they're definitely not earth-based. They haven't spent thousands of lifetimes understanding the body and how to work with it. The other piece for the moms is, if they were coming of age in college or their early 20s, and you just couldn't get them to engage in the traditional career path or the traditional college path, and they were always seeking other questions about life and not that interested in how they were going to make money, that is often a sign of an angelic soul, because in the higher realms, there's no e-commerce, we don't have to make money in the highest realms. And so if that's a completely foreign concept here, that is also a sign of it. Another thing you were saying, Linda, about addictions is so important. because whether it's an IP or an angelic soul, their discomfort in being here will cause them to go, oh wow, when I took that drink or had that pill, I suddenly felt shifted into a higher frequency that reminded me of home. And so without being able to navigate that, it's kind of a spiritual seeking experience to experience a higher frequency that they once knew. And yet on earth, we know that that doesn't work. It doesn't serve us. So I always say that the way you look at your child, if they struggled with ADHD or they struggled with addiction or any of those things, there was no fault in any of that. They were not making mistakes. They were just completely unaware of how to navigate this realm. Does that make sense, Linda? Is that what you believe?
Yeah, totally, Sue, that all makes sense. And maybe we should just come back. We're sort of letting the earth-based soul be the stepchild, so to
Yes.
speak. So no, it all makes perfect sense. So earth-based souls and our beloved Adam on the other side is an earth-based soul. I actually know of some incarnations of that soul. So if your child is an earth-based soul, or if you are an earth-based soul, it's like how to compare this, but it's sort of like if you compare me, well, maybe we compare me with Sue. It's not like I don't have any physiological issues, but as an earth-based soul, sort of, kind of like knock on wood here, may it continue. Um, uh, I don't overly struggle with the human body. I mean, I have some issues, but not major digestive, allergy, addiction issues. And so if your child on the other side is an earth-based soul, um, they're going to seem as they were in body, and as you feel their energy now, there's almost a grounding. There's a grounding that may not exist if your child is IP or angelic. And again, it's what Sue just said.
That's a good way to say it. The grounding piece is missing. That's good.
Right. And it's not like there's something wrong with your child that they weren't so grounded. And, that's the beauty. Is, I think, partly why I stepped away from conventional psychology, to remove this out of what we call abnormal psychology, so that an IP soul or an angelic soul, what I call an AR soul, an angelic realm soul, there's nothing wrong with these people at all. They're just highly evolved souls that haven't been in body on earth many times. But an earth-based soul, and I would, I think I'll say, this is not going out on a limb, if your child on the other side is an earth-based soul, it's highly likely they're highly evolved, because of potentially the choice, and it isn't always a choice, and I think you all know that, but if leaving their bodies was purposeful, and that I always hate to, have those words come out of my mouth, because I know how incredibly difficult it is and challenging to walk through the grief and loss of a child leaving their bodies. But an earth-based soul who leaves their body prior to when you might have thought they would, often it's because they simply agreed to come, do what they came to do, but they were a pretty grounded individual, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's an excellent explanation. And I think that that's helping a lot of people, because they're all writing what they think their children are, but also
Good.
what they think they are. And that's very helpful to all of them. We only have 5 minutes left. It seems like we have gotten through this so quickly, and we haven't had much time at all to be able to talk about this. But I wanted to just ask you. One of our parents a um, had a reading early on with a medium that she feels is very trusted, and her son was murdered, and the medium said it was free will on the part of I guess the murderer's free will. Does that mean that having him transition was not part of the soul's pre-planning? Could either of you maybe answer that, or
I'm sure we both have strong answers. So Linda, do you want to go first? Because that question bothers me a lot, but go ahead, tell us what you think first and I'll add my.
Well,
reassuring, because I know it's reassuring. I know there's nothing wrong with the way that your son transitioned, but yes, okay. Go ahead.
I mean, what I hear in my head, and this is tricky and obviously so challenging if your child was murdered. I mean, it's challenging to have a child on the other side. Yes, of course, no matter how that all occurred. And it's just so tricky. So yes, I would say that this is I'm gonna just say what's coming to me. If your child was murdered, I think it's highly unlikely that a murder is pre-planned. That's a free will decision on the part of the person who, whatever they did for the murder to happen. And so that's my take. But what I'm hearing, and Sue, you may have a totally different response, and that's completely fine. What I'm hearing is that soul of your child, one, may come back into body very, very fast, may come back into body in your own family, because that, I think you all know, that does happen. But I just want to say, I think dealing with the transition of our children is so complicated. So I'll just finish by saying, if in fact it's truly a murder, meaning something that's heinous and not a accidental, a car accident or something like that, yes, it's free will choice. And that, in my opinion, suggests that it wasn't pre-planned. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I have to defer to my original teacher, Paul Frederick, my husband, because one of the first lessons he gave me as soon as he left his body was to show me the divine order of this universe and how things beyond our comprehension are made in agreement before we get here. And we do know murder is horrible, but that when people come together and have an interactive, painful experience, meaning one person is causing the other pain, that is hard as it is for us to understand that those soul agreements are part of the bigger divine order of soul growth that we cannot possibly understand with our conscious human minds. And so Paul has shown me over many decades how that even plays out in war, how that plays out. For example, soldiers dying in war, Paul says, are highly evolved souls who wanted to go through accelerated, painful lessons to evolve collectively, no matter what side of the war they're on, because by agreeing to experience war, they rise quickly into a higher frequency of wisdom and understanding, whether they're killed in a horrible way or whether they live through it. And my little mind has no ability to understand how that works, but it feels in my heart to be true. And it feels that way whether I look at people I work with who've lost someone to murder, or even when we look at, cancer caused by a chemical sprayed in your backyard that you had no control over. These are somehow events that are coming together for evolutionary purposes for all of us, way beyond our ability to understand. And that's just what my heart tells me.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful. say one thing very quickly. I think it's important to remind everyone that if their child has passed by murder or by any other way, our souls are taken out of our bodies before
Yes.
we ever experience any pain. So none of your children have experienced pain in their transition. And actually they're experiencing enormous joy because they're going home. And we're the ones that are suffering, obviously, from not having them here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Linda.
No, that's
Elizabeth,
so
that's
true.
fine. That felt important. I'll just tack on, and part of it is because I work so much with clients who are dealing with past lives and working on their evolutionary path and how they balance that. And I think that's part of where I was coming from with my comments. But just a quick comment, because I know we're about out of time. But bottom line is I can't say evolution enough times. Evolution, evolution, evolution. That our child, no matter how they passed, they are evolving. They are growing. They are contributing to not just the evolution of humanity, but the evolution of the universe. And so I don't want to minimize what any of us go through as parents, with the circumstances surrounding the transition of our child, but it's all contributes to the evolution. And I think that's basically, Sue, what you're saying that
Yeah.
you received from Paul.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. And it's interesting, Pamela is saying everything I've read and listened to said that we've all been both victim and victimizer.
Yes.
There's no judgment on the other side. It's all an experience. It's all an experience and soul growth, which is exactly what you were saying, Linda.
Yes.
I love that.
And that's what Paul has really told me over and over again, that we're playing roles. It's like a Shakespeare play.
Right.
And we agree to play the villain or the victim because each role evolves our consciousness and helps us ultimately choose love and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
which are the most important things while we're here, is just remembering that love is the only thing that's important while we're here, and also showing compassion to others. And I am so grateful to both of you for showing all of us that our, first of all, that our children are happy, healthy, and whole, that they all are so evolved. I mean, no matter which child it is, if it's an interplanetary being, if it's an earth-based child, or if it's an angelic being, all of them are incredibly evolved, and they're helping us while we're here, which is wonderful to know as well. And we meet up with them in our dreams, and we can just ask them to help in this journey that is our earth journey that is difficult. But I also want to have you guys back again if we can, just because there are so many questions all the time and we can never get them answered. But for this evening, I would love to be able to ask everyone to say thank you and good evening, unless you have any words of wisdom that you want to leave us with. Maybe either of you would
I'd
like
like to honor
Elizabeth,
Dr. Linda.
can I
I'd like
just
to
say-
honor Dr. Linda because her work is astounding and I'm so in awe of her. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much.
I mean, Sue, as everybody knows from listening to me and to you, the feeling is completely mutual, and it's just fun and a pleasure
Very
to
fun.
be together
Such
with
a
all
fun
of you.
conversation.
Yeah, totally. My honor.
My
And
honor.
Lisa, you guys are amazing. Lisa's also asking something. So what is it that you wanted to
I
add?
just wanted to say, a couple people in the chat box have just really, really enjoyed this. We've all enjoyed this, myself included, but would like to know if they're interested in learning more, where do you recommend they look for books or podcasts or other tools on this subject? And I just want to give you a moment to
Linda,
able
we
to
should do
send-
another podcast together.
Totally. I so agree.
But Linda would know where a lot of these podcasts and books are. So
Yes, and I would just say, go to my website, which is ravenheartcenter.com. There are podcasts, there are interviews, there are books. feel free to write to me. Please, anyone, I'm totally open. Just write to me. Easiest way to track me down, easiest email to remember is linda@ravenheartcenter.com. Please write to me. I'm happy to answer questions.
And me too, Sue at brilliantwork.com.
Or just www.suefrederick.com. Is that right? So
Yes.
it goes the same place. And thank you all for being here. We are just so grateful that you joined us this evening. We're very grateful to both of you, as well as to Lisa. Thank you for coming and helping this evening. And she is such a huge part of all of our organization here at Helping Parents Heal. She does so much for us. So we always ask everyone to unmute and say thank you and good evening. And if you'd like to do so, go ahead. This will be recorded, so you'll be able to see it later as well.
Thank
So-
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you
you
so
much.
so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
everyone, have a wonderful
Thank
evening.
you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.